Council being held on the 1st of October 2025. We have Councillors Allison, Anderson, Barker, Bradley, Brogan, Brown, Councillor Archie Buchanan, Councillor Matthew Buchanan. I'll just check if we've got Councillor Kalikis. We don't have Councillor Kalikis. We have Councillor Carmichael, Councillor Chalmers, Councillor Clark, Councillor Convery, the Provost, Councillor Corbett, Councillor Cowan, Councillor Cowie, Councillor Devlin, Councillor Dewar, Councillor Donnelly. I'll check if we've got Councillor Equi. We don't have Councillor Equi. We have Councillor Fagan, Councillor Faulkner, Councillor Ferguson. I'll check if we've got Councillor Ferguson Miller. We don't have Councillor Ferguson Miller. We have Councillor Frame, Councillor Fulton, Councillor Gowland, Councillor Gray, Councillor Hamilton, Councillor Handywood, Councillor Horn, Councillor Horsham, Councillor Hose, Councillor Johnson-Dempsey, Councillor Keat, Councillor Kerr, Councillor Lambie. I'll check if we've got Councillor Lennon. All right, thanks, Councillor Devlin. We have Councillor Lockhart, Councillor Logan, Councillor Loudon, Councillor Hugh MacDonald, Councillor Marsh, Councillor McAllen, Councillor McClymont. We have apologies from Councillor McCreary. We have Councillor Leslie MacDonald. We have Councillor McDougall, Councillor McGeever, Councillor McLaughlin, Councillor Nelson, Councillor Nugent, Councillor Ray, Councillor Razak, Councillor Robb, Councillor Ross, Councillor Scott, Councillor Shearer, Councillor Thompson, Councillor Toner, Councillor Walker, Councillor Watson and Councillor Williams. And with that, I'll hand you back to the Provost for today's business.
You will say? Yep. Can I welcome our new chair of the SNP group this morning? Welcome, Maureen, to your new role. Hope things go smoothly for you. So we're moving on now to item 1. Any declarations of interest? No? Okay. And item 2, minutes of previous meeting, pages 5 to 10. Minutes of the meeting of South Lanarkshire Council held on the 7th of May, submitted for approval as a correct record. Members, do you agree the minute as written? Thank you. Item 3, minute of Risk and Audit Scrutiny Committee, item 18 February 2025, pages 11 to 18. Minutes of the meeting of the Risk and Audit Scrutiny Committee held on 18th February, submitted for information. Do the members agree that this is a correct note of the minute? Thank you. Item 4, minute of Risk and Audit Scrutiny Committee, 6th of May 2025, pages 19 to 23. Minute of the meeting of the Risk and Audit Scrutiny Committee held on 6th May, submitted for information. Do the members agree that this is a correct note of the minute? Thank you. Item 5, update to terms of reference, pages 23 and 24. Provost, I would like to invite Ian to speak to this matter.
Thank you, Provost. Morning, members. It's the purpose of the report to request approval to amend terms of reference in respect of area committees. Members will be aware the Fireworks Pyrotechnic Article Scotland Act 2022 introduced a range of restrictions and requirements on the use of fireworks, including the introduction of discretionary powers for local authorities to designate firework control zones. At its meeting on 27th of August, the Executive Committee agreed that, given the geographical nature of any firework control zone and the benefits and implications it could have locally, it would be appropriate that area committees determine whether to approve or reject proposals for firework control zones. So it's proposed that the terms of reference for area committees be amended to include an additional clause as set out at 4.1, namely to designate a place within the area as a firework control zone, to amend and or revoke such a firework control zone, all in terms of the 2022 Act. And Council was asked to approve the recommendation that the terms of reference for area committees be amended as set out in 4.1 to include the power to designate areas as firework control zones. What I'd say is that, subject to Council's decision today, we'll arrange for briefings at each of the next area committees on firework control zones. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, moving forward. Can we agree that item? Thank you. Item 6, Touch a Life, Make a Difference initiative, update pages 25 to 28. Again, can I invite Ian to speak to that matter?
Thank you, Provost. Purpose report update the Council on the use of donations generated by the Touch a Life Make a Difference fundraising work in 2025. Council will be familiar with the background to the initiative. Felt it appropriate to report two recent developments on the use of 2025 fundraising to Council. Firstly, in 14 August 2025, Sense Scotland contacted the Council to advise they were partnering with Big Give as part of their Christmas Appeal campaign, that being an online match funding platform, matching donations to double the difference donors can make in support of charitable causes. Sense Scotland advised they were asking all donors to make a pledge before 29th of August, as that would be doubled by the Big Give champions. Following consultation with the relevant members, and use of delegated authority previously granted by Council. Council confirmed a £5,000 pledge to Sense Scotland by the August deadline to enable the charity to take advantage of the match funding on offer to it. Secondly, the Province was contacted in September 25 in respect of fundraising that Unison was undertaking to transport surplus gym equipment to Kharkiv in Ukraine. It was proposed a £500 contribution be donated from the Touch Life Make a Difference initiative towards the transportation costs. That proposed donation was made subject to approval by Council at this meeting of the Council. Relevant members were advised of this in advance. As previously reported, a decision will be taken on the final sharing later on in the year when we have greater clarity over the total sum available for distribution. So just taking you back to the recommendations, asking that Council note this update on the initiative, including the pledge to Sense Scotland, approve the one-off donation to Unison's transportation of surplus gym equipment as a further beneficiary of the initiative in 2025, and note that an annual update on the work will be submitted to Council on 10th December. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions, colleagues? Okay, do we agree the recommendations? Thank you. Item 7, recommendation referred by the Executive Committee, Annual Investment Report 2024-25. Your copy of the paper has been circulated separately. Again, can I invite Ian to speak to this report?
Thank you, Provost. A standard recommendation referred report for Council on meeting on the 24th of September. Executive Committee considered a report which had been referred to it by the Finance and Corporate Resources Committee of 10 September. The Finance and Resources Committee had brought forward recommendations that the Treasury Management Activity Report for 24-25 and the 24-25 Treasury Management and Prudential Code indicators be noted, and that the Council's Annual Investment Report for 24-25 be endorsed and referred to the Council for formal approval in line with the relevant regulations. Executive Committee decided that the Treasury Management Activity Report 24-25 and the Prudential Code indicators be noted, and that the Annual Investment Report be endorsed, and recommended to Council that the Annual Investment Report 24-25 be approved. An extract of the minutes included in the normal way in the report. So what we're asking Council to approve today is that the Annual Investment Report 24-25 be approved. Thank you. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions, colleagues? We're happy to agree this. Thank you. Item 8 on the agenda, South Lanarkshire's Climate Emergency Declaration. A motion has been received in terms of Standing Order number 21 on the 15th of September 25, proposed by Councillor Kirsten Robb, seconded by Councillor Rose Clark, as follows. And I'll pass to Councillor Clark to... Sorry? Councillor Robb, to give your information, please.
Thank you and good morning everybody. Climate change is real and happening now in front of our eyes in our communities. So I thank Ross Clark for seconding this motion to secure further necessary action on it, and I also thank the administration for their efforts, particularly on the estate strategy and their support for the various sustainability motions I've brought. Over the last few years we've seen increasing storms, flooding, wildfires and now extreme heat. This summer in the UK, there were over 1,000 excess deaths related to climate-driven heat waves. In the Council, we can see this climate pressure in the budget too, with over £3 million in recent insurance claims from the January storm and more pressures on services across the Council. And the cost of climate breakdown in the UK is now estimated to amount up to £3,000 per household over the course of this year. Let this be a wake-up call. Let us show leadership and say that South Lanarkshire Council clearly declares a climate emergency. Let us make a clear commitment to set emission reductions targets by the end of this political term, along with a delivery plan. Good work is taking place across the Council on sustainability, but we councillors must do more. It's our legal duty to reduce emissions. So when a sustainability impact assessment flags that a policy or project could increase emissions, we should take that seriously and seek to minimise the impact. And finally, let us grasp the positive opportunity the public are asking for our help with. Cut emissions and adapt to a changing climate whilst reducing inequality. Organisations working with the Climate Action Hub in Lanarkshire are demonstrating the community, health and environmental benefits of climate action. And with the net zero economy in Scotland growing 20% since 2022, providing over 100,000 jobs and making up nearly 5% of the economy, there are clear economic opportunities too. With your backing for this motion, I'm positive that we can help South Lanarkshire be a stronger, climate-resilient, fairer, greener place. I thank you for playing your part and ask you to back this motion to sharpen our focus for people and planet in the Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Clark, do you wish to speak to yours?
Yes, thank you, Provost. Global temperatures are now at the highest since records began. In fact, just last year, world temperatures temporarily reached beyond the 1.5 degree climate threshold as set out in the Paris Agreement for the very first time. We're seeing rising sea levels, rising temperatures, droughts, fires and more severe weather events. Climate change remains one of the biggest global threats facing humanity, and it hasn't gone away. All nations and all spheres of government must be playing their part, and that includes South Lanarkshire Council. Because it's not just a global challenge, it's a challenge for Scotland, and it's a challenge for South Lanarkshire. Because the impacts will be felt right here by our communities, impacts on our food, our water, our air, our energy, and our environment and our transport. We've already seen impacts events like Storm Ewan can have, as the motion references. The price of not acting now far outweighs the cost of action. And economic benefits and investment opportunities in ensuring a just transition must be realised. There's local actions we can take, building on the achievements we've already made in the work we are currently doing. To that point, I thank Councillor Robb for proposing this motion and working with us on it. It's important that there's cross-party buy-in, because I referenced there a just transition, and that requires us to bring people with us. And how can we bring people with us if we can't even agree on these principles? Not only does it promote those important local actions, it recognises the climate emergency we all face and sends out a clear message that South Lanarkshire reaffirms our commitment to tackle this challenge for the benefit of our communities. Please support the motion. Thank you.
Okay, I understand there's, are there any questions thus far? Okay. Councillor Watson.
Thanks, Chair. I'm just looking for a bit of clarity on some wording here in page 32. It's asking for a report back to Climate Change and Sustainability Committee, and it's including that we should be holding, and I'm just looking for clarity on what it actually means, although I think I know what it means. Hybrid events as default. Could the mover of the motion please clarify what's meant by that? Thanks.
Councillor Robb.
No, sure, no problem. Thanks, David. I think it's just to recognise that we're in a modern world where we need to reduce emissions, to be as inclusive as possible. Making events hybrid is that what it's about? It's not saying that all events must be hybrid, but it's saying the default is to make sure we're inclusive. But where where people need to come together in workshop styles, that can be done in person. But hybrid, you can also do that as well. It's just to give people the widest range of options, but keep a focus. This is about reducing emissions as well. And the top of the transport hierarchy is reducing the need to travel. I recognise the benefits of in person, but it's offering a hybrid option as default so that everybody has an inclusive option to join whilst reducing emissions. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Fagan.
Thanks, Provost. The Labour Group do want to put forward an amendment, but can I reassure the Council that it is not an amendment to any of the content of the motion? I believe it has been or is about to be circulated. It's simply to add three points in three areas that I think are going to warrant further consideration as we take this forward. There has to be a sustained, there is a need for sustained investment in local action on the climate emergency, and it's around that issue of sustained investment and effective investment that I wanted to make 3 points. The first is I would support, so I emphasise this is in addition to all the content of the motion, that we continue to endorse the calls for fair funding for local government. And I think the key point is this greater action around the issue of investment in decarbonisation and in the transition to a net zero economy. It's been a frequent feature of our COSLA lobbying exercise. I appreciate Councillor Robb identifying the Transformation Fund and the estate strategy, but we know from reports that have come to the Council that unless there is a substantial increase in capital investment or there is another vehicle brought forward to facilitate capital investment, then we're going to struggle to hit some of these net zero targets. So I'm phrasing this very carefully. Around the need to expand local government's capacity for investment in our communities and in the transition to a transformed economy and a net zero future. And that language comes straight from the Verity House Agreement, because the Verity House Agreement identifies this as an area of priority for cooperation between Scottish local government and the Scottish Government. The second point is a point that we have argued for before, which is around active travel investment. Where active travel investment is channelled through local government, we want to see the maximum control over that active travel investment. We've made progress in this with the tiered approach that has been taken, but it's not full progress. I think for us to see full progress, we want to see full control. And I would emphasise again that what that investment is about and what active travel is about is not simply building cycle lanes. We've got some good examples of cycle infrastructure in South Lanarkshire. Can I say diplomatically, we've got some examples that are not so good. But I would stress all the time that while we want to see investment in cycling and we want to widen participation in cycling, we also have to see investment in walking and wheeling. And I want to, that brings me to my third point, which I think is a point Councillor Robb herself has made. It would be useful to get a report on our active travel investments, on the effectiveness of those active travel investments to allow that further scrutiny to take place. And I'm suggesting in this amendment that could either go to the Executive Committee or the Community and Enterprise Resources Committee. My preference would probably be the Executive Committee, it has to be said. But I think I just want to stress that there is concern out there around how active travel investment is directed. And I think that we should address that as a council in a mature and balanced way by ensuring it is as effective as possible. Nothing I'm putting forward in any way diminishes or takes away from the content of the motion itself, which the Labour group are certainly supportive of. But we seek to add to that in the 3 areas that I've set out in the amendment. And I thank the Council for their indulgence. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder for your amendment? Do you wish to speak?
No, thanks.
Yeah. Any questions or comments? Councillor Barker.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that report, Councillor Robb. I think we all agree with the concerns about climate change. I'm not sure how South Lanarkshire acting more quickly will really have much of an effect on world climate. I think basically in support of the amendment, we do need actions, perhaps more than declarations. And one of the obvious things that has been done in recent months was electrification of the railway to East Kilbride, which must have made a difference. So I would support more actions rather than just declarations. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I come to Councillor Shearer, please?
Provost, I would request a 5-minute recess so that we can discuss the amendment coming from the Labour administration.
Any objections to that from the Labour group? Okay, we'll have a 5-minute amendment starting just now. For the
just hopefully it'll help during the recess, because the point I made earlier on about hybrid defences default, can we maybe look at the wording in that? Because I hear what you're saying and it's not going to be exclusive, but the word default means that hybrid's going to be the first protocol, and I don't think that's necessary, hopefully not what you're meaning, but I don't want us to get down the stage further on down the line that some things are happening and the throwback is, well, you voted for that when you voted for this motion. I think there is a place for hybrid, but there is I think it shouldn't be a default, and certainly there should be more scope for in-person meetings. So I'm just worried about just the terminology used there, and maybe in recess you can have a wee think about that before we vote. Thanks.
okay, we'll move into recess now. Okay, can I call the meeting to attention, please? Can I ask for silence? Thank you. I'm going to understand that during the recess, a form of words has been agreed that might make things a bit clearer for collaboration on this. So I'm going to ask Susan to go ahead. Sorry, Ross Clark.
To summarise that.
Okay.
Sorry?
You happy that I summarise it? Yeah. Yep.
Of course we're going to summarise it. Okay.
You happy I do that? Yeah. Okay, following the adjournment, there's been agreement that in terms of the original motion, in the third last bullet point on page 30, where it refers to hybrid events as default, the words where appropriate will be added to that. And in terms of the first page, in terms of the council agreeing, the second bullet point of the amendment that was circulated by Councillor Fagan and Councillor Convery, Councillors Robb and Councillor Clark have agreed to accept that, subject to, and this is with the agreement of both Councillor Fagan and Councillor Convery, that at the end of bullet point 2, which begins write to the Scottish Government to request the full devolution, etc., that what's added to that is whilst maintaining and valuing our partnership working with other delivery agencies. So that has been agreed by everyone.
Okay, we all in agreement then? Okay. Thank you. Okay, moving on now to item 9 on your papers. Notice of motion review of the West of Scotland Road Safety Forum guidance, page 31. A notice of motion has been received in terms of Standing Order number 21 on 15 September, page 31. I'm going to invite Councillor Mars to speak to her notice of motion. And can I just check that this is seconded by Councillor Loudon? Thank you. Okay, Councillor Mars.
Thank you, Provost. Council, we can surely all agree that providing education and equity of access to that is one of the most life-changing services that we provide, and that South Lanarkshire can rightly be proud of the achievements of our young people and the hard work of our staff, from our teachers to our support staff and to the bus drivers, making sure our young people arrive at school warm, dry and ready to learn. But this provision, offering free transport to secondary school pupils who live more than 2 miles away from school, has been removed by this administration. Now only secondary pupils living 3 miles away from school are eligible, and in areas where public transport does not meet need, or for where pupils don't have transport from home, that will mean walking along safe walking routes. The Education Scotland Act 1980 places the duty on councils to provide school transport for distances of more than 3 miles for children over 8. So the changes this year meet this statutory minimum. But the Act is just that, a minimum, a base standard. In the West of Scotland, 13 councils make school transport decisions based on criteria known as the West of Scotland Road Safety Guidance, a process to determine whether a route is safe or not. It is a short document, including an easy-to-read decision-making flowchart, and would appear to be identically worded since certainly 2004, over 20 years ago. Since then, the Scottish Government has published its own guidance in 2021, noting that councils can go further than the 1980 Act, that councils should review the guidance they work to regularly, and should consider a number of road characteristics that can impact pupil safety. For example, footways, subways, built-up areas, wooded areas, speed limits, and whether there is adequate street lighting. It would be fair to say that the current guidance is limited in its consideration of some aspects of road safety, and to many does not meet the public expectation of a safe walking route. Stating that an area of road designated by a white line or even a grass verde can be considered an acceptable stepping off point, and that vehicle numbers rather than vehicle type are assessed, unless of course the road has no footway at all. Road speed limits appear not to be formally part of the assessment, and neither are wooded areas, subways or street lighting. Route geography, steep hills or remote roads are only considered in terms of visibility around tight bends. It's important to highlight the current guidance deems routes to be safe if accompanied by a responsible adult. But is it realistic that secondary school pupils would submit to be walked to school by their caregiver? Given the significant changes in road network, traffic volumes, access to public transport and school transport eligibility, I believe it's time we looked at this again, that the guidance is reviewed and modernised and sets a new standard for South Lanarkshire. Disappointingly, this is not the first time this has been requested. In February 2024, it was asked of the Road Safety Forum that ahead of the proposed changes to school transport, that the West of Scotland road safety guidance should be brought in front of members for discussion. The minutes of the forum note that the answer was that the school transport consultation was ongoing and would be considered under current guidance, and it would not be reviewed at the forum. And later by email, it was noted that it was not necessary to bring a paper on the guidance to the next forum meeting. Well, the consultation is long time complete. The assessments have been done. The decision to reduce school transport has been taken. Surely now there can be no impediment to a review, ensuring the assessment guidance we work to wholly considers and protects the safety of our travelling pupils. Council, I ask you to support this motion to instruct officers to conduct a review of the suitability of the West of Scotland road safety guidance for its purposes, as recommended by the Scottish Government Guidance 2021, and request a paper to be brought to the Education Committee with recommendations for decision. Thank you.
Would you like to second that, Councillor Loudon?
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Provost. It used to be the case, Council, that we were told the most popular page on the Council website was the school holiday dates. And it would be really interesting to hear if that was the case during the period of consultation on the cuts to school buses, because I have my suspicions that the hits on the link to the West of Scotland road safety guidelines might have broken that record. I've received a huge volume of correspondence from my constituents on this issue, and I've joined them at public meetings, community meetings, protest walks, and helped them access walking routes. This amount of contact, of course, wasn't surprising to me at all. When the cuts came into force in August, 88% of pupils at one of my local schools lost their school transport. And of course, like all affected families across South Lanarkshire, they were directed by officers to the West of Scotland guidelines if they queried the walking routes that were provided to them. The link to the guidelines on our website is to a PDF file, badged with a South Lanarkshire logo and with no indication of date on that file. When my constituents, parent councils and campaign groups have asked me about these guidelines, there has been real shock just how old they are, and that Councillor Mars's repeated requests for review through the Road Safety Forum had been rejected. Provost, I would like to take this opportunity to commend my colleague, Councillor Mars, for her tenacity and her persistence on that forum in asking that these guidelines are reviewed, because the power to decide if they suit our council lies with our council, not with the 12 other local authorities in the West of Scotland forum. There has been some blurring of lines and dubiety about the cuts during the whole consultation and the decision-making process, and some dubiety about the status with which we're working in. But for the avoidance of doubt, here are some facts. It's the UK Government Education Act from 1980 that lays the legal foundation for school transport. Scottish Government guidelines from 2021 complement that, and these guidelines place the ball very firmly in local authorities' courts and ask that their safety criteria are kept updated. It is our council who must decide if these criteria are sufficient to keep our children and our young people safe, if they are suited to our council and our communities, including our rural ones, and ours are simply woefully out of date. This is our responsibility, council, and no one else's. Finally, I'd like to commend the resolve of the parents, carers and young people who are keeping this issue to the fore, including those who have joined us in the public gallery today and I know are watching on YouTube at home. There is now no impediment to reviewing these guidelines, and they would expect us to do the right thing, not pass it off to another body, but for us to ensure that it happens. So, Council, I ask you to support this motion. Thank you.
Members, have we any questions? Councillor Alec Allison.
Thanks, Provost. Needing a little bit of clarity, I'm now unsure as to what you're actually asked, what the motion is actually asking for after Councillor Loudon's seconding. My understanding was that we were going to request the West of Scotland Road Safety Forum to review their conditions, if you like, etc., that we adhere to. I'm not sure that that's what's now being asked. It sounds more like that we are being asked to bring up our own standards, if you like, and not follow the West of Scotland Road Safety Forum. Which is it? Because if it's the former, we have no right to change them, but we have a right to go to the forum to ask them to review. And I think it makes a big difference as to where we go here.
Councillor Fagan.
Provost, my intention was to put forward an amendment. I don't know if you want to take it now, I can present it now. If you want to take it later, I'll speak later.
I'll take Councillor Loudon first.
Thanks, Provost. Just for a bit of clarity for Councillor Allison, you can see on the bottom it's showing up as page 31 on my agenda here. It says, now that these processes are concluded, Council instructs officers, meaning our Council officers, to conduct a review of the suitability of the West of Scotland Road Safety Guidance for its purposes. So, in other words, we're not asking for anything different today. What we are asking is that our Council officers, as Councillor Mars has previously requested via the Road Safety Forum, look at the West of Scotland Road Safety Guidance. Since they are supposed to be flexible criteria that can be adapted and interpreted in different ways, according to the needs of specific councils, and our council has very different needs from some other councils who are within that forum. That's what we're asking for today, that our officers have a look at those existing guidelines, decide if they're fit for purpose, and that would be the start of the process at looking at amending them. We're not interested in what the other 12 local authorities are doing. We're talking about keeping our children and young people safe and doing that with guidelines that are suitable for us. Thanks, Provost.
Thank you. I'll take Councillor Robb next.
Thank you. I just wanted to speak in support of the motion. The reasons are because road casualties are up. We've had various reports on that, and I think we need to refresh and look again at the road safety criteria to make sure we're making sure that young people are as safe as possible. Last year in November, full council, off the back of a road safety petition in East Kilbride, I asked if the West of Scotland road safety guidance could be reviewed as part of the new local transport strategy, and the answer was yes, that could be done. So as part of this motion, I'd like to make sure that actually happens. There's other measures that can help as well. It's particularly important we get some investment in non-adopted roads as well, because some of the active travel funding is limited to adopted roads only. So that means areas which are safe routes or deemed as safe routes, even in the current criteria, can't get the investment. So we need to look at that too. And the housing and grounds accounts, for example, they're struggling for repairs on important routes to school, and also on road safety, on the 20-mile-an-hour limits. I asked before the summer, when are we going to get an update on 20-mile-an-hour limits, which would help reduce road casualties, as shown elsewhere. And that was told after the summer, so I would like to know when that's coming forward as well. So just to say, we need to review the guidance to make sure our young people are safe as possible, particularly in the light of road casualties increasing. I support the motion. Thank you.
Councillor Frame.
Thank you very much, Provost, for allowing me to speak briefly on this very important issue. I'd also like to welcome and thank parents from Sanford and Althouse who are here in the gallery and watching on YouTube. My ward, as you know, is quite rural and with little hamlets scattered about. I've been dealing with 2 such areas recently and believe these both areas pose safety hazards for youngsters walking to and from school. I've met with parents from children from Althouse who are seeing their children walk through heavily wooded areas with no artificial lighting, very little natural lighting and uneven walkways. I was provided with a video walkthrough of this area and even I would be extremely uneasy walking this route. Shortly after my election to the council, I spent a good number of months with parents and carers from Sanford. At this time, the mileage cut-off was still 2 miles. But Sanford was in a unique position where some kids were within the 2 miles and others, sometimes next door to each other, were outside the 2 miles. Therefore, they received the school transport. During my time working with the parents, I was pleased to have been able to get officers to attend and discuss the routing and decisions made on the route. I have now been supporting parents from Sanford since school transport was cut this school year. I wasn't content that the road was safe, and this is still my view. I still hold today the route from Sanford to Straven is extremely open to the elements, such so that the sections of the road are closed and or damaged in harsh conditions. So just think what these conditions can do to children as young as 11 walking there. Then there is a large section where only the separation from a road to a pavement is a white line. No curb, no grass verge, just a white line. This can be difficult to see in darker periods. This route is routinely used by large vehicles and is also a national speed limit road. This surely cannot be considered safe. I therefore ask that the West Scotland road guidance is reviewed and amended to have separate guidance between urban and rural areas. I thank my SNP colleagues for their work on this important issue. Thank you. Please support the motion.
Councillor Fagan.
So thank you, Provost. I do want to put forward an amendment. The relevant guidance is the West of Scotland Road Safety Forum guidance used by local authorities across the West of Scotland, SNP councils, Labour-led councils, councils of all shapes and sizes. And we agree that this guidance should be subject to review, and that is set out in my amendment. We understand that the last review did not conclude, so one was initiated but it never came to a conclusion, and I would diplomatically make the point that at no point during 5 years of SNP rule in South Lanarkshire was that guidance reviewed, but we will move on. Our amendment agrees to a review and believes that this and indeed regular reviews would represent good practice. I hear the point that has been made around requests for a review of the guidance. I would say that nothing at any point would have stopped a motion coming forward, as a motion has come forward today, but I take the point that has been made. There is a consensus, I think, across most parties in this council that the guidance should be subject to some kind of review. The motion calls for the Education Committee to be the decision-making body. Transport and road safety in this context sits across council departments. I don't believe that that would be the appropriate decision-making committee in this instance. An amendment calls for the West of Scotland Road Safety Forum to be reconvened for the purposes of reviewing its guidance to the point of conclusion. And I would also repeat our point that there should be fair funding for local government. Councillor Loudon referred to some dubiety in this issue, so let me provide some clarity. The motion sets out the duty on local authorities to provide school transport for walking distances greater than 3 miles for those over 8 years of age and 2 miles for under 8 years of age. That is a duty that this council not only continues to meet but exceeds in primary school. If it is the position of the SNP in South Lanarkshire that the legislation is inadequate, if they are so concerned that local authorities faced with years of rising costs and Scottish Government underfunding do not provide secondary school transport for walking distances greater than 2 miles, then let them challenge their legislators to do something about it. Make new legislation, fund councils properly, or agree to any number of the constructive suggestions we put forward to move more money into the system. The reality is that councils across the country have moved to statutory criteria as their funding has been slashed. South Lanarkshire is only the latest to join them, entirely because we've been rocked by the twin terrors of rising costs and declining funding over a sustained period. The cumulative total of £7.8 billion in real terms has been stripped out of councils by the Scottish Government, with barely a peep from SNP councillors in this local authority. Those are the decisions councils have had to make to protect school budgets from cuts. Those are the decisions councils have had to make to prevent tougher cuts to frontline services. And those are the decisions we have had to make to avoid deeper cuts to classrooms, the classrooms of the very same young people who are affected, as well as every other young person in South Lanarkshire. So my message to the SNP is this: local government is accountable for the decisions we make. It's time to hold the Scottish Government accountable for the decisions they make. It's time for the SNP to own their own austerity. And let me remind the SNP group that for all their dog-ate-my-homework excuses, they had the chance to put forward different spending plans locally, and they didn't. Let me say to all the people watching this committee that the SNP group backed a budget in this council, in this very chamber, that backed school transport cuts this year and would actually have meant another £6 million of cuts next year. So we'll take constructive criticism from the parents who have genuine concerns, and we will back a review of road safety guidance, but we won't take any lectures from the council cutters and the SNP. Thank you.
Any questions or comments on the amendment? Have we a seconder for that?
I'll second it, Chair.
Thank you.
Chair, just see on that when I'm seconding it, and I hope people are listening to this, because at the end of the day, Joe Fagan has eloquently told the truth. And that's the problem sometimes. Truth gets missed out. Because at the end of the day, we sat in this room, sorry, not this room, another room in this building, and went through hours and hours of anguish of where we made the cuts. But you know the sad thing, we've been making cuts under this SNP government since I came into this council. That's a fact of life, whether folk want to admit it or no. And I don't have a problem with Councillor Marrs putting forward a motion. I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with, if we're not going to take cuts for this area, we need to take it for somewhere. You cannot kid on to people, and I hope the people are listening, you cannot kid on to people that everything's in the garden's rosy. Everything in the garden's no rosy. I never came into local government to make cuts, and I don't think anybody else in this room came in to make cuts. But the reality of life is stark naked. We've taken, since I've come into this council, and by the time this council finishes in a year and a half's time, we'll have taken something like £160 million of savings. They're no savings, they are cuts to services. And I'll stand up with Joe Fagan anywhere, any time, any place to tell the truth to people. Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Julia Marrs.
Thank you, Provost. I'm quite surprised, firstly, to hear a call for legislation to help councillors make the right decisions for their young people in South Lanarkshire, and the mind boggles with that, to be quite honest. But what I would say is, given the criticism of this administration's policy to cut the school buses, I'm not surprised your comments look back to deflect responsibility. What I would say is our administration not only did not propose to cut the school buses, but was preceded and followed by two Labour administrations who both did, one unsuccessfully and the current one successfully. Given the Scottish Government guidance on school transport came in 2021, giving little or no time for the then SNP administration to review it. The natural time for the review would have been by the next administration and prior to any decision to cut the school buses. That was asked for by me at the Road Safety Forum. It was asked for by other councillors in this chamber, and there was no support. So I think it is disingenuous to say that we're asking now and not before. I think you need to accept the motion.
Councillor Anderson.
Thanks, Provost. I just heard Jerry Convery say that his council's cut £160 million. I wonder if Jerry would tell us how much did this council pay out on the equal pay fiasco that they created, and how much has this council paid in the PPP form going to a private company that this council has been dealt with? No wonder we've cut £160 million, because the money's going out the door to the wrong people. Thanks. And just as another thing, I keep hearing this, we'll call on the Scottish Government to give fair funding. Will they call on Anna Sarwar to put up an alternate budget and tell them where they're going to spend the money, not just on the council, but the NHS and all the other times they call for extra funding? Thanks, Provost.
We seem to have any further questions or comments to be made. Councillor Shearer.
Thank you, Provost. I would call for a roll call vote when we come to the vote.
Okay, I'll allow that. Councillor Allison.
This has went down into raw politics when we're trying to do what's best for our pupils. I would quite happily have supported asking the West of Scotland to review their guidelines, as they hadn't done so since 2003. The 2016 one was incomplete. To bring all the other issues in and to suggest that we move away and draw up our own guidelines is not what I would then support.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Okay, we'll move to a vote. Okay, we'll move to the roll call vote, and I'll pass to Susan to take that forward.
Thank you, Provost. Before you, you have a motion proposed by Councillor Marsh and seconded by Councillor Loudon, and that's on page 31 of your papers. An amendment was circulated, and that is proposed by Councillor Fagan and seconded by Councillor Convery. When I read out your name, could I ask that you indicate whether you wish to vote for the motion or the amendment? Councillor Allison? You have to request to speak, sorry, for the roll call. Councillor Allison?
Can you repeat which one was the motion?
The motion is as per page 31 of your papers by Councillor Marsh and seconded by Councillor Loudon, and the amendment is by Councillor Fagan and seconded by Councillor Convery, and that was emailed and circulated.
Amendment.
Amendment, thank you. Councillor Anderson.
Motion.
Thank you. Councillor Barker.
Amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Bradley.
Motion.
Thank you. Councillor Brogan.
Amendment.
Councillor Brown. Just to confirm, that was amendment. Councillor Archie Buchanan. Councillor Buchanan.
Motion.
Thank you. Councillor Matthew Buchanan. Just to confirm, that was amendment. Councillor Carmichael. Councillor Carmichael. Councillor Carmichael, can you hear? Sorry, was that amendment you said?
Amendment, yes.
Thank you. Councillor Chalmers.
Motion.
Just to confirm that was motion. Councillor Clark.
Motion.
Thank you. Councillor Convery.
Amendment.
Just to confirm that was amendment. Provost.
Amendment.
Confirm that was amendment. Councillor Corbett. Hi, Councillor Corbett. Councillor Corbett.
Hello, motion?
Thank you. Councillor Cowan.
Motion?
Thank you. Councillor Cowie.
Amendment?
Thank you. Councillor Devlin. That was amendment. Councillor Dewar. Just to confirm that was the motion. Councillor Donnelly.
Motion.
Thank you. Councillor Equi.
Aye, the amendment, please.
Thank you. Councillor Fagan. Amendment. Thank you. Councillor Faulkner.
Amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Ferguson.
Motion.
Thank you. Councillor Frame.
Motion.
Thank you. Councillor Fulton. Councillor Fulton.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yep, sorry. Motion?
Thank you. Councillor Gowland. Just to confirm that was amendment. Councillor Gray. Councillor Gray.
Motion?
Thank you. Councillor Hamilton. Just confirm that was amendment. Councillor Handybode. Again, amendment. Councillor Horn.
Motion?
Thank you. Councillor Horsham.
Motion?
Thank you. Councillor Hose.
Amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson Dempsey.
Motion?
Thank you. Councillor Keat.
Amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Kerr. That was amendment. Councillor Lambie.
Motion?
Thank you. Councillor Lockhart. Thank you. Councillor Logan. That was amendment. Thank you. Councillor Loudon.
I think it's working. Motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hugh MacDonald.
Motion, Susan?
Thank you. Councillor Marsh.
Motion.
Councillor McAllen.
Motion?
Thank you. Councillor McClymont.
Amendment.
Councillor Leslie MacDonald.
Amendment.
Thank you. Councillor McDougall.
Motion.
Thank you. Councillor McGeever.
Amendment.
Thank you. Councillor McLaughlin. That was amendment. Councillor Nelson.
Amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Nugent.
Motion.
Thank you. Councillor Ray.
Amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Razak.
Amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Robb. That was motion. Councillor Ross.
Motion.
Thank you. Councillor Scott. Amendment. Councillor Shearer.
Motion.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Amendment.
That was amendment. Councillor Toner.
Motion.
Thank you. Councillor Walker. And that was amendment. Councillor Watson.
Amendment.
Thank you. And Councillor Williams. Right, Councillor Williams.
Amendment.
Thank you. There were 27 members voted for the motion and 33 voted for the amendment. The amendment is therefore declared carried.
Councillor Loudon.
Thanks very much, Provost. Just a quick question to tidy up a few details that are missing from the amendment. What are the actions that will be taken to ask for the West of Scotland Forum to be reconvened, and has the administration taken any advice on how long this is likely to take? And can there be a report on progress in this to either the Executive or the Education Committee?
The answer's no to all of that.
Sorry?
Sorry. The answer's no to all of your question.
So there's going to be no actions taken, the administration haven't taken any advice, and there's not going to be a report?
Councillor Figan, do you want me to come in?
I'm going to invite the Chief Executive to speak.
Thanks, Provost.
Okay, listen, thanks, Provost, and thanks, Councillor Loudon. Right, my intention would be, having received the amendment this morning, to pick this up with Councillor Fagan and the administration to look at the details of this and work through, and we'll get a report back to committee, and I'll let you know what the timescales will be for that.
Can we move on to item 10, please? Notice of motion, closure of Cambuslang Job Centre, page 33 in your papers. Yeah. I'm going to invite Councillor Loudon to speak to our notice of motion.
Thank you, Provost. Back in 2016, Council, before I was elected, I campaigned against a proposal to close Cambuslang Job Centre and relocate all of its services to Rutherglen. I remember comments from Citizens Advice Scotland that a closure would most deeply affect the most deprived and the most financially vulnerable, who rely most on face-to-face support to overcome barriers such as with digital access and digital skills. At that time, communities across both Cambuslang wards, local organisations, trade unions and elected members came together to fight against this closure and won. So it was a huge blow during the summer recess. The news broke that it was under threat again. This and the other closure that's been announced in Bristol are supposedly of older and poorer quality buildings, which is a supposed justification that I know Councillor Ray, for example, is on record as agreeing makes absolutely no sense in the case of Cambuslang. In 2017, the previous UK government said they would consult on job centre closures if it would take over 20 minutes to get to the named alternative by public transport. Now, for constituents in the most populated areas of my ward, Rutherglen Job Centre is between a 1 hour 20 to 1 hour 40 minute walk away, and it's at least 30 minutes away using public transport. And it's a similar story for many Cambuslang West residents. Rutherglen Job Centre is 35 to 45 minutes away by bus from the Greenlees area, for example. So this new decision was made by the DWP without prior consultation with affected communities, service users, elected members, trade unions or employees, especially given the huge outpouring of community concern when the last proposal was made. This really is astonishing. Provost, I'd like to take this opportunity to commend Cambuslang Community Council, an organisation who is much respected for their commitment to this community, for their strong and unequivocal stance on this matter. They have called for a reversal of the decision on a number of grounds, including the disproportionate impact it would have on vulnerable people and those living in areas of deprivation, and I agree with them entirely. I understand they have also floated the possibility of some form of outreach service within their community hub, which would be better than nothing, and I would like to thank Council Officer Alison Brown for her input and information on this matter. It's clear that alongside the several hundred local residents who have now signed a petition against the closure, the Community Council will not take this lying down, and I'm sure that they would welcome our support today too. For reasons of time, Provost, my colleague, Councillor Nugent, is going to pick up on some other points from our motion, but I would, however, like to talk about co-location. The job centre is co-located with other vital services in Cambuslang Gate, such as health services, addiction recovery services, housing services and social work. And our award-winning and highly successful partnership organisation, Roots to Work South, is in the building adjacent to the job centre. I know that many of us have had contact with them. I've seen Councillor McClymont talking about the good work they do in her area, and Councillors Brown and Fagan were also at a recent event I attended to celebrate their 20th year of operation. As was explained to a presentation to attendees at that event, co-location with partners is a key element of Roots to Work South's model and their success. It increases the opportunity and the likelihood of people accessing the services which can assist them. Their Lanark base, for example, is a short walk from Lanark Job Centre. The East Kilbride base is practically next door to that job centre. So I'm deeply concerned about losing that geographic link, which works so well in other areas and currently works so well in Cambuslang, will be very detrimental to the service. Indeed, Councillor Fagan spoke at that event and invited us to reflect on the strengths of our partnerships, their power in aligning our shared goals to deliver outcomes for our communities, and indeed the need to strengthen our partnerships in the face of increasing challenges, all of which I agree with entirely. So it's in the spirit of that of Councillor Fagan's points, as well as in the spirit of protecting vital local services, Council, I am asking you to join the many voices in our communities who are speaking out against this closure and support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you for presenting that, Councillor Loudon. I'm going to move to a 5-minute BSL break before we go on to hear the seconder and to take any amendments to your motion. So if we can start that just now, a 5-minute BSL break. It's 11:49. Okay, first one on my list to check is that we've got a seconder. Councillor Nugent.
Thank you, Provost. While the closure of Cambuslang Job Centre will undoubtedly have the greatest impact on residents in Cambuslang East and West, I am seconding this motion as a Rutherglen councillor because the repercussions extend well beyond Cambuslang. In order to accommodate the merger with Cambuslang, Rutherglen Job Centre closed on the 1st of September for extensive refurbishment. This has caused significant inconvenience for my constituents, who now ironically have to travel to Cambuslang to access services. While improvements to the Rutherglen premises are of course welcome, the financial logic behind these decisions is questionable. The DWP spent £200,000 of taxpayers' money in 23-24 improving Cambuslang Job Centre, only to now close it on the grounds that it's not fit for purpose. It's difficult to see how this is anything other than false economy, particularly when yet more public money is now being spent refurbishing Rutherglen to make it fit for purpose. Once Rutherglen reopens, service users from Cambuslang will have no choice but to travel there, incurring costs they can often least afford, just as my constituents are now having to do in reverse. This closure is not only a blow to those who rely on the job centre services, but also to Cambuslang Town Centre itself. The loss of such a key service will inevitably reduce footfall and impact the many other excellent local services that Councillor Loudon has already highlighted. It is welcome news that there may be a possibility of relocating the job centre into the community hub, an idea driven by Cambuslang Community Council, just as they did when all of the banks closed and they led the creation of a banking hub. But surely such options should have been thoroughly explored before the closure was announced as a fait accompli. This decision was made remotely by the DWP with no consultation whatsoever, not with the community, not with staff or unions about relocation, and not with local elected members. In fact, it is now 10 weeks since the constituency MSP, Claire Hockey, requested an urgent meeting with the DWP to discuss this matter. Despite multiple follow-ups, she has received nothing beyond holding responses. That is simply unacceptable. The closure of this essential service affects everyone living in Cambuslang and Rutherglen. I therefore urge elected members from all political parties, particularly those representing the 4 Cambuslang and Rutherglen wards, to support this motion. Thank you, Provost.
Could I call on Councillor Margaret Walker?
Thank you, Chair. We would like to support this motion. I won't make the points over again about the impact on accessibility in terms of the closure if the job centre in Cambuslang closes, and also the impact on the most vulnerable people. Those points have been well made. I don't think the evidence stacks up in terms of the justification for the relocation to Rutherglen. And also it will create financial difficulties for people, which is a major factor in terms of being able to access those services. The point is correct that the job centre is in the middle of a range of different services, and not just routes to work and universal connections, where we have just invested through the Local Action Fund on employment opportunities, training and skills with universal connections, which will be specifically targeted at women. And the job centre at the moment is right in the hub of all that, as well as other public services. So we would, on that basis, agree that the evidence that the DWP has given for the relocation definitely does not stack up. Employment is one of the key components when we're tackling poverty and inequalities. And I think within South Lanarkshire we have some excellent supported employment projects, including one that was recently agreed in terms of one-to-one and mentoring support to people. And I think this has been in the context of a 21 million cut in the Employability Supported Projects Fund since 23-24. We have managed to provide excellent services and increase the numbers of young people that we are getting both into training and employment. So on that basis, I would agree that the administration, that we support this motion. In terms of further down the line, looking at what we can incorporate into the hub, and that has been an ongoing discussion, and I would also acknowledge the work of Cambuslang Community Council and all of the work that they do, including leading on the development of the hub and also the banking hub. But that, I would agree, is a discussion for further down the line. At the moment, there's nothing that stacks up that justifies actually closing the job centre, and I think it will have a detrimental impact on the people of Cambuslang and will probably result in a reduction in numbers accessing those services. So on that basis, we would support this motion. Thank you, Provost.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Councillor Norman Ray.
Thank you, Provost.
Could you turn your microphone off, please, Councillor Walker? Thank you.
Firstly, I'd like to thank Councillors Loudon and Nugent for bringing this motion to the Council today. The closure of Cambuslang Job Centre would have a significant impact on the town, as has already been mentioned, and particularly on those who require to access the services of the job centre. As the motion notes, the local community is strongly opposed to the closure, and elected representatives from all parties have been working to get the decision reversed. I wrote to the relevant minister at the Department of Work and Pensions in July to convey my objections. Regrettably, I have yet to receive a substantive reply and have recently asked again for a response. While I realise that the Minister will have many demands on his time and, I believe, personal issues, the DWP must respond to the local community concerns and keep the job centre open. For those who are relatively well off, travelling to Rutherglen is not difficult. It's a short journey by car, bus or train. But for those in poverty who are more likely to need access to the job centre, the expense of such a journey is a considerable barrier, especially if they are required to attend regularly. Apparently, as again has been said, the justification for the job centre closures is to leave older, poor quality buildings. However, in the case of Cambuslang, this does not make sense. Cambuslang Job Centre is located in a modern building, a hub for a number of public services, including the library and council offices. The effect on the town centre is, again, as has been said, is also relevant. In common with many places, Cambuslang Town Centre has been affected by the decline of retail. A great deal of effort has been put in by the community and by South Lanarkshire Council to revive the town centre in Cambuslang, and the location of key services there is important to support this. Town centre regeneration is of course a wider public policy objective that has transcended governments and political parties over a number of years. A closure such as this undermines those efforts. Though this is not a matter specifically for the DWP, the decisions that they make do have wider implications, and these are certainly a matter that should concern this council. I therefore ask that all members support this motion and add the Council's voice to the effort to convince the Department of Work and Pensions to cancel the closure and preserve this important service for Cambuslang.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further comments? Okay, can we agree the motion unilaterally? Agreed. Good, thank you. And we'll move on now. I have one other thing. I want to, before we move on to urgent business, I want to welcome, I should have done this at the beginning of the meeting, to welcome Lindsay McRoberts, our new Director of Education, to our first meeting of the full council this morning. Lindsay took the chance to remind me that I interviewed her about 15 years ago. So, 24 years ago. So that seems like a wee while ago to me anyway, Lindsay. You're looking well on it. And you got the job, so you're still smiling. We'll see how you're doing here in another 24 years. No, we're delighted to have you, Lindsay. And did we poach you away from North Ayrshire, you said? South Ayrshire. Right, so we poached Lindsay from South Ayrshire. And the ship's still sailing down there at the moment. Good to have you on board here. And I hope you enjoy your time in South Lanarkshire, as everyone in this room is enjoying their time. You'll see that from the smiles that have been displayed in everybody's faces this morning, and how riveting our meetings are, Lindsay. So it's great to have you here. All that remains for me to say is I can smell curry. Is there any other urgent business other than the smell of curry? No. And anybody that makes a run for it is going to be sanctioned. Thank you very much for your prompt attendance this morning, and I'm sorry for my delayed arrival. I could smell the curry cooking and I couldn't get to it. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. And
All right.